6 p.m. and we are at the H.J. McAllister Administration Building, and this meeting was posted according to Texas Government Code. We do have a quorum present tonight with 6 of the 7 trustees, and Jill may be joining us later. She had some family stuff going on, chasing cows around. So we'll go ahead and start with our invocation. Chief, you want to lead us in prayer tonight?
No, gracious God, our Father, we come tonight to give thanks to you whom all blessings flow. We thank you, Father, for the many blessings that you give upon us as the school district. We pray tonight for our school board, Father. I pray that you continue to fill them with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, Father, that they make the right decisions. God, we pray for all of the parents. We pray for our students. We pray for our teachers. We pray for every employee. God, we ask now that you bless us as we continue to carry on in your name. We give you praise, honor, and glory in the most powerful name we know. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. And remain standing. I got everybody, I think. Cherry Elementary will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. We will move into good news. Any board members wish to share any good news? I'll start. Softball, youth softball, Bay City Girls Youth Softball had their opening ceremonies on Saturday. So special thanks to Nikki Brooks, the music teacher at Teen Holmes Elementary. This year, instead of bringing a show choir out, which is awesome, we're bringing adults out, we actually had our softball players that were on the field dressed come out, and all of them that Nikki had worked with, and get together and sing the national anthem, and it was absolutely a beautiful rendition of it. And so it was all Teen Holmes Elementary students that played softball. So shout out to Ms. Nikki Brooks.
I attended the academic and CTE showcase at the high school on Friday, and it was really good. They did a great job. The students were already high school students were pulling in incoming 9th graders next year and trying to get them to see everything and see what there is that they can join as programs and classes, and then even the businesses that came out. It was a great experience.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, so we'll move on to item 5, celebration of excellence. Chris, who's got celebration?
Hi.
Hello.
We're so glad to be here. I am Ms. Howard, the principal at Cherry Elementary, and tonight I'm providing you with the pledges and our celebrations of excellence. Thank you, parents, for coming. This is such a great turnout. We have our students who have made the largest increase from the beginning of the year assessment to the middle of year assessment, and I do want to tell you what this looks like. So we actually have one student, our highest growth in kinder in-class reading. Grew by 419 answers. So think about that. This kindergartner. So, super great growth. In our pre-K section, we had our largest growth was by 76 questions that they got right this time. That is a lot of stamina for a kiddo to sit through all that, so we are super proud of them. I want to present to you, I'm going to start with our pre-K, and Miss A. Davis, if you will come in. We're going to start with Maverick Cortez. Woo! Miss Gardner, I have to have some help with some of the names, so I'm going to call her Miss Gardner as well.
Dorian Acosta Guatzosol.
Could we have a student not here, Waylon Gavronovic? I had to say his name because that is such a cool last name and I practiced it really hard. So Waylon Gavronovic. Jamila Clay. Amberly Sanchez.
Mia Grajales Cortez. Julissa García.
Adrian Solis.
Sofía Coronel Rondón. Anjara Guevara Quinto. Gael Mendoza. Leonardo Cruz.
Okay, I present to you our pre-K highest growth. The last two calls were the ones who had 76-point growth. So that was very awesome. Thank you guys for working so hard. You did a great job. Miss Esther, Mom, can you take a picture? Okay, everybody hold your certificate. Give me this. Oh, let's do this. All right, follow me. We're going to take 3 steps. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Close enough. That's my number right here. Come on forward. Leah, come on forward. Emily, come on. Look this way for your camera. Ready? Y'all say cheese. 1, 2, 3. Good job. Thank y'all. All right.
Pueden ir con sus papás. Vaya, encuentra a mami.
Okay, our next group we're going to have is our kindergarten group. And this is our top growth in the literacy program. Bye. See you tomorrow. Start with Isai Hidalgo. Perfect. Roman Marte. Kari Hines. Rowan Mega. Way to go! Step again. One more time. There you go. Okay, y'all be sitting. 1, 2, 3. Y'all block it. Okay. Thank you. All right. You all can go find your parents. And we have one more group to recognize tonight. This will be our kindergarten growth in math, BOY to MOY. And so super excited, we have a new math test this year, and these kids are rocking it. They actually have to take it on their own on the computer, which is frightening to put a 5-year-old in front of a computer and say, take it away. But they rose to the occasion and they're doing fantastic. First, we have Joaquin Mora. Lauren Garcia. I don't believe she's with us, but we have Hope Anzaldua. And I'm going to have to practice, so I have to say the name. Hope Anzaldua. Angelina Brasco. Tevin Cucciarello. Aaron Austin. And Rowan Hernandez. All right, excellent job. These are our highest growth in math on their universal screener from BOY to MOI. So proud of you guys. You will take 3 steps forward. 1, 2, 3. Excellent job. Okay, look here. 1, 2, 3, cheese. Good job. Parents, thank you for coming out. This is a great opportunity. If you do want to exit, you may do so now. Thank you. Congratulations, Cameron. Patty, go.
Those
Somebody
maps were really good on Friday.
I was more worried about having
catch
enough
them and
for me
pronounce
to
it.
figure
Jay
that
was
out.
like, because I had one, we had a couple of
Thank you, Ms. Howard, you're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you.
It's always our favorite part of the meeting when we get to celebrate our youth. And they're always so excited. Most of them are excited. There was one that looked a little less sure about it. It was, yeah.
Stage fright coming in the door,
All
yes.
right.
That's a great job.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 6, audience with patrons. We have no audience with patrons tonight signed up. And then item 7, Bay City governance. So tonight we'll hear junior high and high school semester 1 TIA growth. Point status update.
So I'm going to give you an update first. For junior high, it was in this print, it's only supposed to be, that was actually my mistake. So it's just supposed to be the high school. Junior high will take their data in April after their benchmark along with Tenny Holmes as well. So Ms. Mosier's here for the high school. Ms. Mosier, take it away.
Awesome. So I just did a printout for you guys. I know sometimes it's hard to see on the screen anyway, especially small numbers. So the first thing is something that was already in the board book for you. When we gathered data, we kind of just did an overall glimpse at the percentage of students meeting the growth expectations. So I'm going to take an opportunity to kind of explain that to you. There's a couple little notes at the bottom. How do we determine growth? So previous years, we've talked about growth from approaches to meets or meets to masters kind of thing, or from failing to approaches. But because of TIA, we are looking at growth measures that are really based on BOY to EOY. So this year at Bay City High School, all of our EOC courses, to be consistent, did a BOY, a beginning of year assessment, where we gave a full-length exam that would look just like the one that they are taking at the end of the year. And then, now that we have done a semester exam, we've retested about half, probably about 55% of that content. So with that in mind, we saw quite a bit of growth. I know it's going to look kind of astonishing, but a couple of things to remember. Biology and U.S. history have no connection to the previous year's subject. So they take that test cold turkey, no instruction at all. So when we set the growth measures, we look at how students do on the BOY, and then what is an expected outcome on the MOY in this case, or eventually at the EOY. Really, at Bay City High School, we've done a lot of reasoning for you guys that kind of was in compliance with LSG, but I wanted to give you a glimpse into what data really looks like on our campus, because how we track data and why we track data is so much more intentional at the campus level than it is to fit a format to bring to you guys. So when we have these conversations, we are looking at a teachers, and I'm not going to share that individual data with you because that wouldn't be appropriate, but we're looking at with teachers. So a teacher sits down and says, okay, looks like my average score was, and then at MOY, my average score is, what percentage of my students have made growth? So you have the overall numbers for that. When we look at biology and U.S. history, we would expect for them to make a lot of growth. So right now, we have about 62% of biology and 58% of U.S. history, which is around what would be reasonable if you took a test that you knew nothing about, and about midway through the year, then you've learned about half of that material. So they're meeting that expectation. But you'll see the growth points, the average growth points is upwards of 30 to 40 points on the exam. The algebra students, kind of oddly enough, although you might think that math is just like, we've been doing math since we were in kindergarten, adding 2 plus 2, right? However, the math concepts that are algebraic, even though there's some foundational skills that have to kind of go along with that, even though in the state of Texas, they have always tracked from 8th grade STAR to 9th grade algebra. We have kind of given a little pushback on that in the past because the curriculum is not necessarily aligned. And they actually have also about 30 points, so about 28 points of growth. But 70% of them have made growth. So we've done a really great job in those areas. With English, same thing is true, that they took a BOY. However, there are a lot of things that are vertically aligned. So when we think about from junior high up to high school, we want to see a significant growth, but you might not see as much growth. We are still at about 59% growth, so that's really great, and about 20 points. But from English 1 to English 2, the only thing different is the genre for the writing piece. So there's not a lot of room for the next level of growth. So we have about 35% making growth. Just to share with you again, not details related to the teachers, but it looks like the majority of our teachers, probably upwards of about 70% of them that are in TIA, would qualify for the teacher incentive allotment based on their individual students' growth numbers.
So, we will do this again at the end of the year for real TIA data submission. But I'm really confident that where we are now would really meet our expectations, kind of aligned with what we did last year, and even a little bit better than what we did last year. If you turn the page, again, I said I wanted to give you a glimpse into kind of how Bay City High School looks at growth. I highlighted in blue for you the approaches number, because we play the graduation game at Bay City High School. And I know that when we have reported in the past, we've been reporting on meets because that was part of the Lone Star governance expectation. But I wanted you guys to look at approaches with me, because when we look at approaches, that's who met requirements for graduation. And those students get the check mark in the box for all of those assessments. They do have to do all 5 in order to meet graduation requirements. I also tracked for you in color the only thing that is apples to apples. And that's an analogy that a lot of teachers use when we're comparing the exact same students. So you will see in blue on this page, English 1 to English 2. That's the only growth that really is our own kids 2 years in a row. And then you'll see it again in orange, different kids, but again, 2 years consecutive. And then you'll see it in green, and then our current students for you are in yellow. So last year as freshmen, our 9th grade class, 67% of them that were first-time testers passed that exam. Where we were at the BOY, when we took the BOY for sophomore year, 62% of them. So really what that means is, I would say a good level of investment about what that meant at the start of their school year, but also a good level of retention. And then, now with the MOI, we're at 78% of that group of kids meeting expectations for graduation. You'll see asterisks. Wanted to explain those to you because that really denotes which of the years that we are meeting or exceeding what the state's standard was. So each of those years, the only difference was in 24-25. We were a little bit below the state. The state was at 91% and we were at 90% for biology, but that is the year that they moved the mark for the biology test and increased it up to the 30% passing. So there is a little column down there for you, bottom right-hand table that's on that page is what it takes to pass. So just so you know, for English 1, they have to have 44% mastery of the test. For English 2, they have to have 42%. For Algebra 1, they have to have 34%. For Biology, they have to have 30%. And for U.S. History, they have to have 29% mastery of the test. And when I say mastery, I don't mean master level. I just mean enough for them to meet the passing standard and to get that check mark for graduation. I know I talked a little bit fast. Anybody have questions so far on the first 2 pages of data? Again, the first one was just kind of an overall look at the percentage of students who are making growth. And then the second page is just kind of a little overview of by the years, how we have been doing with students meeting graduation requirements for the first time ever of taking that test. They are afforded multiple opportunities in their high school career to retake the test. And we give them all those opportunities in the fall, December assessment, as well as in the spring with everybody else as a first-time tester, and then again in the summer. So technically there are upwards of 6 to 8 opportunities as a tester, depending on what year you take the test, what grade level, and which course it is. If you look on the next page, this is the overall BOY to MOI at the approaches level. So it looks like for English 1, we started the year with the BOY, knowing nothing, but knowing something that was vertically aligned. 42% of the students actually made the approaches level on the BOY. We're now up to 65% of students making that level. English 2 was at 62 when they started the year, and they're now up to 78. Algebra was at 4%, and they're now up to 70. Biology, actually, surprisingly, this was our big surprise, but I guess when we think about some foundational skills and some things that we, and definitely the relevance that's kind of provided to students for just everyday world experiences, but they actually started at 70%. But again, if you go back and look, their passing expectation is they only have to have 30% of the content to get that 70%, okay? So they only had to make a 30 to say that they would have met that level. Then U.S. History started the year with 67%, and they right now are our highest one at 99%. meeting graduation requirements for U.S. history. Any questions about those? Okay, the last page, because English is what we have talked about previously in LSG, wanted to give a glimpse into something that I had shared with you guys last year. As we were tracking ELA scores and really pushing, because English 1 is the hardest assessment in the state, to try to think about how we could continue to improve in that area, we were using a writing strategy across the campus, and now that we've done the literacy framework for the district, that is something that is a district expectation. And so just to kind of track the growth for you, last year I had given you the information that was pretty much at the very top half of that graph. We did not have a short constructive response in the BOY last year, but we did have a full essay, at which the average score was 2.7 out of 10. So a reminder that's out of a 10-point score. They started the year. And then at midway through the year, we had done a writing assessment with the semester exam, which they were allowed to revise and edit, and they were scoring at about 5.4 average. So that was really good because we consider 5 mastery in that domain of the test. They started the year over again this year after scoring 4.7 at the end of last year, kind of how it washed out. But they started the year over again after summer, and maybe with little motivation at the start of the school year to actually write a full essay at only a 2.76. But now they are back up after their semester exam to a 5.8. So these are the students, again, that are apples to apples. So that's last year's freshmen to this year's sophomores. The other thing to share with the short constructive response, those do change by genre. So we didn't have one in the beginning, and then when we had one on the semester exam at 1.33, that was a poetry one. So I know that's not on here, but I think I shared that with y'all at the board meeting. And then it's kind of up in the air what it's going to end up being on a real STAR test, and I don't remember the actual genre that was tested, but we were at 1.6 as our average for short constructive responses by the end of last year. We kind of started all over again this year at 0.77 when they took the BOI. So again, that's about, sometimes it's about investment and how much they take seriously at the start of the school year. And we're back up to 1.13. On the previous 2 ago pages, I did share with you just some campus growth notes. And I put them at the bottom of that because they're not just applied to a specific subject area, but some things to kind of share is that for the overall look at our data, we are meeting growth both for accountability, which is a measure from English 1 to English 2, that is in the A through F accountability, as well as for TIA. So it looks like that about 70% of our teachers right now that are involved in TIA are there where they need to be for the student growth piece. The strategic staffing that we have done in the past has limited, I will say, we're still working through some challenges of adjusting to larger class sizes, especially in the English language arts content area, because it does limit the opportunities to give feedback and to really use a good formal process kind of consistently. The other thing to share with relation to that is we have moved, and I think that's mentioned on master scheduling, we have moved strategically some of our staff. So when you look back historically at the data, you see a lot of success that was in English 2, and we were benefiting from our stronger staff members being in places that were comfortable, and we don't like to move everybody's cheese all at one time, but we have made some changes, and there are different staff members that are doing English 1 because it is the hardest test across the state. In addition to that, though, I will share that we do know that the state law has put us kind of in our place regarding teacher certifications, and we have quite a few teachers that are teaching out of their field or working on certification. And so when we're thinking about our master schedule for next year, we definitely have been as strategic as we could. You don't always anticipate when somebody is going to resign or retire. And you guys are probably very familiar with some of our teachers who were a long time and had really great success and then retired. And so we are still working through some of the kinks of deciding where our strength needs to be in each and every department. In addition to that, our master schedule has allowed us still at least a little bit of opportunity, but not by the full department. So for the most part, the main teachers that teach in EOC have planning time together, but their inclusion teachers do not have planning time with them, and if there was a stronger teacher with more experience, many times they are kind of on their own to plan and do their work just because of the limitations of that master schedule. I do think that as we are moving into, I know that there are still some considerations for how we attack the budget deficit and all those things. I come to you saying that our teachers are working as hard as they possibly can, but they are working with large class sizes and multiple preps, and we probably could be doing more if we had more, but we know that with what we've asked them to do, they have still made this growth. And so I'm very, very proud of the growth that we see still in spite of the financial challenges, the master schedule challenges, all of those other things that we've kind of thrown at them. It shows a lot that there's a lot of wherewithal and consistency from our staff. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I have just one. When I think about inclusion teachers and how successful we were back in the day, you know, they met with the teachers during their time, so that all the English teachers were. So was that inclusion person. So anywhere in the master scheduling for next year?
No, ma'am. So where we are right now with our master scheduling, our inclusion teachers carry a pretty large caseload, and they are meeting their minutes requirements and also in ARD meetings as well as, you know, required training. Their expertise is not the content. We're taking advantage of the fact that their expertise is in differentiation and meeting accommodations. And our core teachers, again, not even all of them have the same planning time together, and that is just the nature of condensing our schedule. When I was in the English department, there were 11 teachers. There are 6 in the English department. And it's kind of a similar comparison where we have, like the science department used to have 9 or 10, and we now have 7, and 3 or 4 of them are coaches. So we have reduced the number of available sections within the schedule. In spite of that, we have worked with our inclusion teachers instead to have time that is committed specifically for them to really be analyzing the data and learning specifically what their kids need. And then that opportunity comes in planning sessions that are on our PD days. So as we scheduled and built the academic calendar, that was one of the things that my team, my campus advocated for, was to have those professional development days throughout the year instead of all stacked at the very beginning, so that it allows every opportunity through the grading periods for them to kind of reflect and then reset for the next grading period.
Just to tag along with that. Your inclusion teacher, the certified teacher, and the para-professional, they have an opportunity along with the schedule to work together just to keep up with what's going on in the class.
So we have really strong PLCs on our campus, but that does not happen within the school day. It happens as they're scheduled either before or after school or on professional development days. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for the comment just in regards to the teachers and what they're able to do in their bandwidth. That I'm the one who asked Mr. Townsend about the writing, because as I was reflecting and looking at all of the budget stuff and knowing my kids have gone through the high school, just what has progressed over the years, it was a true question of, if we continue to cut staff, what does that look like for our educational purposes? Even though that's our biggest chunk of budget.
Right.
So to see they're still progressing in the manner, but they're doing it in such huge constraints.
Yeah.
And so if we can alleviate that in some form or fashion, with also still being mindful of the budget, I do appreciate you bringing that.
Absolutely.
And that's where my question came from Mr. Townsend. I had a very long discussion even about it today, just in that regards of, we keep pulling back, but at what point does that crack and it start to truly affect our education that we're providing for our students, because they can't do the one-on-one in the English, in the math, in those areas.
Well, to
So
be
I
honest,
appreciate that.
our strongest teachers are our instructional leaders, and every one of our core teams, the instructional leader still carries a section of the EOC. And there's a lot of value in that they can coach up new people that join the team, but we take advantage of their strength. And again, just the experience that they've had on our campus, knowing our kids, really the challenges that we're overcoming are not truly just academic, but there are a lot of social emotional challenges. Y'all are aware of the attendance challenges that we face. I had shared with Mr. Townsend at one point that like, I'm not sure we can rush this data just because some kids haven't come back from their holiday break and taken the MOI. And it's hard for me to have a conversation with the teachers when we don't have that. We know they'll be back, but there's also a gap in learning from when they're gone. And so they're overcoming a lot of challenges, and I am very proud of the work that our campus has done, like you said, in spite of all those things. I do appreciate the work that you guys have done to try to keep some things at the forefront. I know that staffing, like you said, is the biggest hit on our budget, but I will say they're the biggest resource. At Bay City High School, we can do anything with the staff. We can have very limited other instructional resources and make a huge difference by the people that are there on our campus versus the books that are on the shelf.
Any other questions?
Well, this just may be ignorance on my part, but, you instructional leaders on your campus, how many instructional leaders do we have?
I actually have 10 instructional leaders. One of them is for our, what we call the rescue team, which is kind of an extra, but we do it by department. So we have our CTE leader, we have math, science, social studies, English, foreign language, special education, fine arts, and our support team, which includes like the athletics and PE. So each of those team leaders does extra training with me over the summer. They do a lot of extra data conversations, and then the way things roll out on our campus, anything that we model goes to them, and then they model it for their team in like the team meetings that I share with you. We have days that teachers have dedicated tutorials, but there are also days that are dedicated to the PLC meetings and the data reviews, and then there's also an opportunity then for those team leaders to model for them.
But those instructional leaders are still teaching.
Yes,
They're not just solely instructional
No,
leaders.
they're
Okay,
teaching
I
all
just
day.
wanted to make sure.
And I will be honest with you, Bay City High School runs the way that we do because of the investment of those team leaders, the longevity that we've had out of them, and as you guys know through the staffing cutting, when I became principal, we lost the academic dean on our campus, but I worked really hard to train each of those instructional leaders to take on that role, but within their normal instructional responsibilities, just with a little extra added supervision. One of their tasks that they do weekly is they are also in classrooms with their teachers and work on a schedule to provide the support as needed. So it's it's a very strong model, but I only can give credit to the teachers that are doing it, because Linda Smith will even tell you she'll try anything if I show her how to do it, and then she'll show her team how to do it, but she's not sure it always applies to PE. But stepping out of her comfort zone and doing it. And then the same thing is when we go and we get training and we sit down and we have data review, their data also looks a little bit different, because sometimes I blast it up there and say the number of students who did not meet, right? Because that's a shocker for us. And Bay City High School, our mission is all students. When we say all students, we mean all students. It doesn't matter what demographic they are. It doesn't matter what program of study they're in. It doesn't matter if they're in an honors or an on-level class. All students means all students, and that their goals are met through the tracking of growth. So we spend a lot of time taking ownership of that, and that team leaders help a lot with
Great.
that. Thank y'all.
Thank you. All right. Straight into items of business. Excuse my tardiness this evening. Our first item of business is district annual report, the public hearing. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, how's everybody doing?
Good, how are you?
All living the dream. Better not deserve, I'll take it. So, this evening we're gonna go over the district annual report. This is required by law, and really if it wasn't, it's a good idea to do that anyway. More importantly, we're not gonna dive into data. What I'm gonna do is to show you where to find it, and how we can look at it at their leisure, and that's the best way to do it. Every year, whenever we come, the state gives us an annual report, and that report is called the table report. And education is known for their academics, so you can see this particular report that I'm going to show you guys in 8 different sections. And each section is broken down by credibility, of course. We'll see the taper. I'm going to break that down a little further in each section and show you where to find those areas. Then you've got your themes and financial. It's also published for the state. Of course, in our third one is our accreditation piece, like I mentioned, performance standards, student performance, and then we want to know what kind of demographics we have. But more importantly, one of the sections is actually the glossary. So you can go back and see what all this terminology means and what it looks like. Has anybody show of hands seen the taper report? Yeah, of course. That, it's ginormous. And if you're looking for sub-pops and different groups and different data, you can just get lost in that whirlwind of data, and you won't know which direction you're going. You'll start going down different rabbit holes, and you get lost when you come back to it. We utilize this to look at different areas for us. A lot of the information you get from the BCG just on the campus is also from this report as well. So in section 1, it's a compiled list that TA gives us, again, that taper. It's published in a PDF, and it comes out every year. Every district gets it, every campus gets it in the state. So everybody's part of their rating system. So when we talk about an A through F rating, this is where a lot of that information comes from. So when we look at section 1, again, we broke it down by everything you see here. And in conclusion, in the second part of section 1 here, this taper part, the second part of the cover page, you'll see it right off the bat. And I'm going to click on some hyperlinks so you can see it. So when you get that, when you get the taper report, the first thing you see is a cover page. It has our name, it has the district's name, the campus name that's there, and of course a campus ID number or a district number. Just make sure that you're identifying your actual place. So the previous campus I worked at was Marshall High School, but it was in San Antonio, Texas. If you're not careful and you look at Marshall High School, you could get it Marshall, Texas as well. So you want to make sure you're really linking to the campus number as well. And inside that cover page, you'll see it broken down as far as the ASVAB that was given. So if the district did not offer that, which we do, then you wouldn't see that part in the taper as well. We look at all 3 different performance rates within this taper report as well. So you'll see it broken out by grade levels in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Pretty much anytime we have an EOC test or in-course testing, you'll see the various approaches, meets, and masters. So the 3 different levels that students can achieve whenever you're looking at reports. So when you look at 3rd grade, you see what demographic it is, what grade level it is inside there. I'm going to show it to you. And you can see how many students, on a percentage-wise, achieve the approaches, the meets, and the masters. As we look at each one of these, we determine the data that's best for us. So in that second part, 3 through 8 is all reported, and 9 through 12 or 9 through 11 in those EOC tests. So that's where we're looking in the high school level, the junior high, and in that elementary level. It also covers CCMR performance and our annual growth. So we're looking at a variety of different aspects of the student. The best way to put this report is it looks at it as a whole from the district. Everything from our required 14-16 build and accelerated instruction we have to do for students to how successful they are, broken down by, again, each demographic. A sample of our taper report is in this presentation. For example, this is Algebra 1 through biology and in-course exams. You can see how we compare to the region. You can see compared how we are to the state. You can see how we are compared amongst different entities within our state at each different grade level. Our bilingual education is also a big part of data tracking for us, along with our special populations. Part of this taper report, when you get past about 8 or 9 pages, you'll start to see some of the bilingual education broken down in English as a second language, right? So our ESL students, or EB students, if they're bilingual, are also broke down into this group as well in that taper report. That's important for us to understand simply because when we look at the data, that's one of our 4 sub-pops that we're really focusing on to help with that growth aspect, especially in our district and our area. So we want to make sure we're on track for the direction we're going with the state, but again with ourselves. And again, this is from this year's taper report, so this is actual data from them. So it would be important to know how many of the students actually participated within the STAR data, right, the EOC. If we just took a few kids and we took 5 or 6 of them, it's not a great sample of what we could offer as a district. So a true look at the data, when you look at it from quantitative perspective here, and you can certainly look at how our students are performing overall. So knowing exactly which student took the test. So for example, 2 or more races specific, either Asian, American Indian, African American, Hispanic, white, all of our demographics and all special crops are under as well. So we get a true representation of everybody who's participating within this exam. One of the things we follow quite a bit at all levels. One, graduation, that's going to be at our high school level. But every grade level we're following the attendance. And a large part of the driving force when we look at the taper report, you can start to see trends over a few periods of years. You can track it through enrollment, you can track it through attendance and graduation rates. If you start to see things, dropout rates or graduation rates that look unusually high, for example, you want to start looking into that. You know, and one way to find out, is this a coding issue or is this really an issue that we're facing? What we have found over, in my experience, a lot of times there's some coding issues that you need to address. So in the Peams Road, if you use a code 98, this is a student who drops out and we can't find him anywhere. That's not always the case. A lot of the times the students do check into another district. We want to make sure we code that appropriately. So when we see high dropout rates or high non-graduation rates, due to that, that's the first place to look. So that's what this report helps us do, go back and find, hey, are we coding these individuals correctly? Is this a training issue? Or are we really having this many students drop out? And if so, why? How can we find out the problems that we're facing? Attendance is the same way. And it's good for all grade levels. So when you look at it over the years, 23, 24, and 22, 23, then you can get an understanding of where our attendance is moving forward. So as a district in 23, 24, 92.6% overall attendance rate. But how many of those were chronic attendance issues? And that's something that gets our attention too, right? So if we're at 24%, how's that aligning to the state? Well, it's 19.2. Well, we look, okay, where's the work that we're doing? So we make adjustments moving forward. CCMR is a big part, obviously, for any district, not just for funding purposes, but for all of the options available to students. We have a fantastic CCMR program at the high school level, but again, it starts from this small all the way up, so everybody's doing their part to get the students ready. More importantly, we want to make sure that the students are completing their strands as needed. The taper report also allows us to look at that as a whole. Again, breaking it down by sub-pops, and you can see I've outlined it in red where you can see that taper report. Again, this is still the same report, we just keep scrolling down the pages to be able to find that. Part of that CCMR too is post-secondary indicators. I went to the next slide, just so you kind of understand. When we get to that part in this section here, when I look at it, in this section one, we'll talk briefly about it. Just understand that's very difficult to track. It's hard to find out where the student starts at that post-secondary spot, if they finish in that college, or do they go somewhere else. And how many times they transfer from here to there. Myself, for example, I started at Lynn Junior College, took some classes at San Antonio College, took some classes at Northwest Vista College and UTSA, and took some grad school classes, and it's all over the place. So it's very hard to track because of not just where the student is, but the time lag that it takes to get that information. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here. One of the last parts in this section one that covers the taper report is our student information, staff information, and of course teachers by program, which is actually important. So a good ratio to how many teachers we have to students is something we use in this report. It also gives us an understanding of what we're comparing to as the state is concerned and within the region. So now we have an understanding of how many teachers we have. If we're seeing a drop off in other districts, well, there might be a bigger issue applied to this. So finding all these here gives us a robust information dive for anybody who wants to see it within the state or within the district. So in section 2 here, we see our Peams financial reports. There are some links in here. Let me see that link. Music, you see that one with those links in the campus and the district? There's a link. Okay. So you'll have those direct links, those hyperlinks, and this takes you to the financial reports from Peams. It gives you the revenues, finances, and pretty much the checkbook of the district, and it can break down by campus. The nice thing about that is when you go to one of the campus, you can actually pick the campus, so you don't have to wait for each one. It's very easy to use and very friendly for you to understand. District accreditation is section 3. So this is a big aspect for any school because, or any district, if you're not accredited, any diploma that you offer up is not going to be worth anything. So having accreditation is extremely important. And when you achieve that is through certain standards within the state. Making sure you have students that are graduating on time, making sure you're having highly qualified teachers. A lot of these different factors play a role into making sure that you're accredited. And of course, BCISD is accredited. In section 4, our campus performance objectives are there. So this is our, you would know it as a district improvement plan or a DIP, and the CIP for the campuses are also available when you go to our district site. So the links that you have take us right to there. They're updated so everybody can see it within the state. Our taper reports are also on the website as well. Report on violent crime or criminal incidents. So this is a big one when we talk about safe schools and how everybody can is your district safe or is it not? And part of what we have to do is we have to report legally any very violent crimes. So I'll give you an example: manslaughter, sexual assault, things that would even occur off site still have to be reported if they're violent crimes even inside. BCISD had 0 last year, so these are not common. You wouldn't see a lot of these. If you did, you would probably already know by now. One of the ones that really kind of sent people astray was vapes a couple of years back when they made it a felony. So it really kind of skewed the data a lot of times. So now you can start to see it kind of come back to normal. The post-secondary piece is section 6 within the annual report. Again, once you find in that link, you can see the Texas Education Data Board that they use. The link on the very bottom, the THECB. This gives you an understanding of post-secondary work. I took a picture of what ours is and put it on this slideshow, so that's exactly what you would see. Kind of understanding how many total grads, whether it's a 4-year or 2-year or independent colleges. So I'm not tracking, it's only 9 and then 101 are found, right? So we have 226 from last year. So about half are being tracked. In section 7, this is our progress for the district and the course toward meeting board adoption. So this is what Ms. Moser just presented on. Right? This is our BCG that you see all the time, where we're tracking it ourselves, making sure that we're following the sequence of events to make sure that adequate progress is being made. It's not just required by law, but it's also good practice. And section 8 is the glossary. So if you want to go back into the table report, understand what some of the terminologies are, some of the acronyms, some of the more broader definitions, and go in there, and it's pretty, what's the word I'm looking for here? Concrete, right? So you'll be able to see exactly what they're talking about. So if you've ever run into those issues, you can go back to the glossary. And if there's ever any questions, of course, that's me right there. So people who want to reach out to or have questions about our annual report that's published on the website, they'll be able to contact me and talk about it.
Great. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, I think it was section 7 or 8. How long do y'all track them?
Post-secondary?
Uh-huh.
We don't. The state does track it, and it's usually about a 2-year deal where they're tracking. The 226 graduates would have been from last year. So that's the most up-to-date information we have.
But just for the high school, I was very impressed. My grandson finished in 2019, and he's now enrolled at WCJC. And they were able to go from there back to Glenn and told them to make sure that they report.
That's great. The biggest thing that we face is we're at the mercy of those universities to make sure they report. If they're not holding up that end of it, there's really not much we can do to force that. But I'm glad they're doing it.
Yeah, and first thing I thought, I said, well, we in partnership with WCJC, so sure they're gonna pick it up. But I don't think that was the case, and whatever, I was very pleased and very impressed that they would do that. And it also helped that he got the same counselor, advice from the same counselor that he had at home. So, very impressed with that. Ms. Alonso.
Something I forgot to share with y'all, on that second page that I gave you, there was a little bit of information about graduates. We do still have in the state of Texas an individual graduation committee option for students who do not meet STAR testing requirements. In the TAPER report, you'll see a negative, like I think it might just say a -1. It's because there are so few students that graduate that way at Bay City High School that it's too few, kind of to protect the confidentiality. They don't share that it's only a handful of students that graduate that way. The rest of them are graduating truly by passing all their EOCs, meeting the CCMR requirements, all of those other things. So I wanted to kind of share where we are right now. It looks like we have about 19, but some of those are the exact same students. It's 12 students that some need more than one subject. And they have not yet taken the spring assessment to try their last time before going to IGC. So just to share that information with you, and it does show that negative number on the TAPER report, and that's why.
Which is the more time you get your traditional route, the better.
Yes.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, item B, SB 546, report and consideration of resolution.
DJ?
Good evening, y'all. How are y'all?
Good, how are you?
Doing great. So back in the summer, the legislature passed Senate Bill 546 that introduces the 3-point seatbelt requirement for all school buses, and we have to be in compliance by September 1st, 2029. A part of that compliance, we have to give a report on how many buses we operate in the district, how many do not have seatbelts, how many have 2-point, how many have 3-point. And then we have to report all this back to TEA, and at the end of it, there's a grant opportunity that they have so graciously blessed us with. So just a quick overview here. Like I said, our full compliance date is September 1st, 2029. When our number of buses that are affected, we have 16 buses with no seatbelts, 3 buses with 2-point, and we have 11 buses with 3-point seatbelts. So our next steps in the TEA's eyes are either total replacement if it's financially feasible, or retrofit all of these buses without 3-point seatbelts and get them to 3-point seatbelts. So in my report, I have this little slide here to meet our steps of full compliance. We would need to replace, the numbers out there, but it's 19 total buses at approximately $160,000 because we paid, I think it was $156,000 this past summer for 2 buses. So approximately $3 million to replace our entire fleet. As we stand currently, we all know that that is not financially feasible in our current budget situation. So we would have to be looking at our retrofit of our fleet of those 19 buses of approximately $30,000 a piece. Now, this ranges based off of the age of the bus, how many seats there is, how many passengers it holds, but the average is about $30,000 per bus. So we're looking roughly $586,000, almost $587,000 to retrofit our entire fleet. We have a caveat to this. We have about 8 or 9 2006s that really wouldn't be that smart to retrofit those buses as those are going to be starting to phase out, hopefully with the turf grant opportunities. And if things start getting where we want them to, we can start replacing those older buses and get those 2-3 points with the new state requirements. So we would really be looking at, I have another slide here, but it's about $280,000 over the next 3 years to phase those buses in over the next 3 years. And like I said, we would have a grant opportunity once this reporting closes in May of this year. And then here's a little brief synopsis of the calendar. Obviously, we have to complete our report by May 29th, and then potential phase in 3 phases in the next 3 budget cycles to meet that September 1st, 2029 date. And then here is our list of school buses here. And over here in the far right column, you can see where our prices are. We highlighted the ones in green that we would recommend to retrofit first, as those would most likely be in our fleet for the longest period of time. Any questions?
The grant, you keep saying possible, when do we know?
It would be after we complete this reporting period, then TEA will come out and, based off of the study that the entire state is doing, see how much money is needed across the state for all the districts that are in need, and then it would shake out from there.
So end of the year, summer, beginning of next
They
year?
haven't indicated.
But if we get a grant, then that covers all of or some of?
They hadn't indicated if it would cover all or if it would just cover a portion.
So this is a scenario where they threw legislation out there,
Yeah.
not knowing how to fund it. And so,
What?
so once they figure out how much it's going to cost, then they're going to see how much money they have. And
That was part of the compliance date out in the future of 2029. They wanted to see what was out there in the state to get these reports going, get this reported back, and then they can figure out.
So this doesn't affect this year's budget. The cycle we're coming into, we're not gonna put anything in there just yet?
We just did get approved for 2 buses in the turf grant of 2025, but those would most likely hit 2027, depending on how things shake out. Mr. Ernie and I will figure out what we need to retrofit, when we can retrofit, and see how the budget plans.
so I don't want to glance over that. So he and Ms. Jernigan worked very hard on turf grant, and so we were awarded 2 new gas buses. So I just wanted to make sure that we didn't skip over that. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
We basically did 1 bus for, or it's a third of a discount. and we get about $64,000 off of the bus. So we'll only be paying about $100,000 per bus.
So one of the 06s,
Yep,
two of the 06s,
yeah, the two that are listed on the far right up there for Turk 2025 would be two buses that got approved. And then the rest of them up there for 2025 and 2027, that's the ones that we're looking at in the future.
Great.
So what you guys have before you is a resolution, and so really what we're asking is that along with that, is that school boards can make the statement that, yes, we will commit to phasing this in, but if you do not have the funds to do so, then you will do so as those funds come available, and be responsible in heading in that direction. So that is what this resolution is basically saying, that we don't have the funds to do this right now, but as they become available, we will phase in as much as we can, and then we'll wait and see what the state comes up with after they complete their study.
All right, are there any other questions? Is there a motion to be made?
Yeah. Is that the SB 546 one?
Yes,
Yep.
I make a motion to
Just adopt the resolution.
adopt the resolution.
Is there a second to the motion? All right, we have a first and a second. Any further conversation? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, sir. All right, item C, our audit report by KM&L.
I'm just gonna introduce Mr. Wade Whitlow here and let him kind of take over. He is our auditor.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Doing well yourself.
Doing well, thank you.
All right, well, it's good to see y'all again. So Wade Whitlow, audit partner with KM&L. So each of y'all should have a blue-bound report in front of you. And there's a few items that I want to go through on this report. Some of the things that point out, I've heard multiple people get up already and talk about the upcoming budget cycle and the financial situation. So y'all are more than aware of that, so I'm not gonna browbeat on that. Y'all are aware and y'all are taking steps to address that piece. So the first thing is past this first blue tab, you'll see financial section. And if you turn that over, you'll see our letterhead up top with independent auditors report. So this is our opinion on the financial statements, and we're issuing an unmodified opinion. So that's a clean opinion. It lets the readers of the financial statements know that what they're reading subsequent to this letter is materially and factually correct. I'm not sure if I'm hitting something on this board.
I was too. I don't know. It's just very touchy.
Here, I'll just hold it. We do have two other letters in the back that we're issuing as well, and they kind of coincide with a couple other areas within this report. So one of those areas is past the second tab. You'll see the required supplementary information, and then it's Exhibit G1. Thank you. Exhibit G1, and this shows the final budget compared to the actual expenditures for fiscal year ending 2025. And some of the things to point out within this schedule is there are 5 different functions at the functional level that have an unfavorable variance within the expenditure side. Now, in total, the budget was appropriated for total expenditures, but TEA requires you to have a favorable variance at a functional level. So that will coincide with one of the items I'm going to point out here in a second. So past the fourth blue tab, you'll see the federal awards section. And this is the area I was wanting to pay more attention to. So we have 2 letters within here that we're issuing. The first is our report on internal control over financial report. So what this letter is a part of our audit process. We go through and we evaluate the controls that are in place. And through that, we do testing of transactions, walkthrough procedures, and a lot of inquiry with management, not only in the business side, but in various other departments. And anything we identify from a deficiency standpoint is recorded within this letter. Now, one thing I do want to mention, we don't issue an opinion on the effectiveness of the controls that are in place, only if we identify deficiencies. So within this letter, we had 2 that we identified. And go over those in just a second. I want to go over the 3rd letter, which is right after that one. It's our report on compliance for each of the major federal programs we identified. So this year we had 2 programs that we tested. The first was the special education cluster, and and the second one was the Title I Part A funds. And similar to the report on internal controls over financial reporting, we have a report on internal control over compliance within this letter. And we had 3 items that we disclosed as it relates to internal controls over compliance. So those findings start on page 110 in the schedule of findings and question costs. So the first 2 are related to that first letter I just went over, or that I went over, the report on internal control over financial reporting. So the first item is a material weakness over financial reporting, and what that is just a lack of control over the general ledger. Now, one of the things that the district did this past year was implement a new accounting system. With the implementation of any software system, even if you beta test it for a year, when you go live, you're only about 80% of the way there. With any implementation like that, having the awareness to be able to adjust on the fly when things aren't being coded correctly, or when things aren't, there's bugs in the system that need to be worked out, whatever the case may be, there has to be a heightened level of awareness to catch those items. Over this past fiscal year, that awareness wasn't quite at that level. And it caused a number of audit adjustments that needed to be made on our end to get the books into a place to where we could issue that unmodified opinion. So, as it stood last year in 2025, material weakness is a lapse of controls to where the financial data that's being provided cannot be reliable. Okay, so it's a significant issue that Ms. Jernigan and I have had many conversations about this, and she understands from my standpoint and from hers as well the level of severity as it relates to getting this reined in. Okay. The second finding on page 111. Now it's what I was going over related with the budget versus action. Now with this one kind of coincides with the finding I just had with the lack of control over the general ledger. The board as decision makers, y'all are making decisions based on the data that's provided to you. So if that data is not accurate, you end up in this position where there's a material non-compliance as it relates to the reporting or the final budget versus the actual figures at the end of the year. So these 2 items coincide with one another. You fix the general ledger side on the books, budget adjustments, budget amendments that are brought to the board for approval, they will mirror that, and you should not have those issues coming forward. So the 3rd, 4th, and 5th item is surrounded by the programs that we tested with special education cluster and the Title I Part A funds. And really, these findings, there was no non-compliance with the compliance requirements that we're required to test in accordance with uniform guidance. The White House issues a compliance supplement every year, and then we utilize that compliance supplement to formulate our audit procedures around the programs. So one of the things similar to the report on internal control, where we don't issue an opinion on the effectiveness of the controls that are in place, when it comes to compliance, we don't issue a legal determination. Since we're auditors, we're not attorneys, we can't give a legal determination, but we utilize a materiality threshold surrounding those programs and then test the requirements that are applicable to that compliance supplement for each of the programs identified as negative. So within these items, it's real, the thing that it came down to was just monitoring where the district is related to maintenance of effort over both programs, and then a calculation of excess cost as it relates to the special education program, or that grant, I should say. So the district, from the evidence that we were able to gather, is that y'all were in compliance with these requirements, which allowed us to issue the unmodified opinion. But the controls surrounding that is what gave us pause, and it's really just a monitoring aspect throughout the fiscal year surrounding those programs. Ms. Jernigan and I have talked about these. We do have corrective actions that start on page 116. And, you know, just the biggest elephant in the room as it relates to these findings that we're issuing is giving employees the proper training, understanding this new system. Everyone that has a hand in these various aspects, whether it's across departments, within a singular department, is really focusing on these and implementing policies and procedures to mitigate these issues that have arisen over the past couple of years. Some of these items have been new to the district. We did have a finding last year related to the calculation of the payroll accrual. So a lot of these items have been buried, or a lot of the issues have been buried in a sense because of they haven't risen to the level to be included as findings related to this. We do issue a management letter or a client advisory letter that's also provided in the back flap here. I'll let y'all read those at your leisure. But what happens is when we find some of these, when we find something that is just a control deficiency that needs to be looked at and have a corrective action put into place, but it doesn't rise to the level of severity to be included as a finding within the report. We include those within that advisory. Well, if those go unchecked over time, a snowball effect begins to occur, and that's where they end up. Through conversations with Ms. Jernigan, I am confident that she understands the challenges that are in place. I think her first week here was when we were out here for our year-end field work. So not only was she trying to get introduced and learn all the people within the district and learn how the district has operated, having some crossover from the previous business, well, then she had auditors to deal with as well. So she was drinking from a fire hydrant there for a little bit. So, but she knows the task that's ahead of her, or not ahead of her, she's in the middle of it. So I am confident that she's going to start steering that the right way, while also, making the necessary changes to get there. Yes.
Just the finding for the special education spending in 3 and the finding for the internal controls over the general ledger, isn't it generally the same thing, just a different program? I mean, if the internal controls aren't there,
Not,
you would think it would be, it's not quite the same.
Yeah, so there's a difference between that lack of control of the general ledger, that's a financial reporting aspect, so that's a finding related to the actual dollar amounts. That excess cost in the special education cluster, there was no monitoring from a calculation standpoint that, enough was being spent as it relates to grant funding that was coming in.
I mean, we did have to spend a certain amount.
yeah, you have to spend a certain, we, last year, the school district should have been monitoring that MOE and making sure that we were spending the correct amount, and so those are the findings 3, 4, and 5. And we've already been doing those this year, as far as those MOE calculations and monitoring that. We have already started that. That is something that we will do continuously throughout the year.
Thank you.
And one of the things, one of the questions you may have in your head is, well, how's this just now bubbling up? How do you not know? Why didn't you catch this last year? Well, with these programs, the way that uniform guidance gives us guidance on how we select these major programs. Typically, we don't audit these programs every year. If we audit it one year, it goes on a 3-year rotation typically, if there's no issues identified. So one of these we may have tested 3 years ago, and now we're picking it up now, and we see it now.
And does it have to do with within especially that we've had this overturn of supervisors or directors or whatever that is coming in, and they have perhaps overlooked or didn't understand that? Because I think now that I'm hearing is just going to be another change in that. So I like what you're doing, I like the way that it's been presented, and I think you're doing a wonderful job. But somehow on us, when it comes to, I guess, Mr. Jones, and picking a director for this, and we have to make sure that director is someone that understands finance. If not, Ms. Jernigan, that would be somebody you need to perhaps take under your wing to do that. But special ed, I expected that because I am a special ed person. But so I see that you have something in place, and I know that it's going to be done. I just want to throw that out because we have had a new finance person come in, one is 5, now we have return. Special ed director, we've had one that somebody else is coming in. So I think within all of those changes, we are looking at places in the budget where you're going to see some gaps or perhaps some, I see it. So for us, one of our things, Mr. Johnson, is going to be to maybe challenge you to, and Ms. Jernigan, to make sure that those people that's coming in understand the procedure.
Yes, ma'am, 100%. And, these findings, of course, they're just now being reporting, but it's something that we were aware of at the beginning. And so Ms. Guyton and Ms. Jernigan have been meeting regularly this whole time, looking at that MOE and monitoring that together and making sure that this doesn't happen again. So absolutely 100%, you're right. And I will tell you that it is happening already, because if we were to start now, it would be too late, right? So it's been happening all semester, but and the only way to do that is constant communication between those two, and looking at it and monitoring it and adjusting. It's a beast, it really is. But you're absolutely right, yes, ma'am.
And Ms. Robinson, I just want to give you just a little peace of mind. I'm not planning on going anywhere for a while, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But as you said, Ms. Guyton and I have been meeting quite regularly with the federal programs. I've also been meeting with Ms. Rawlings and a few other people. been talking with Carly to make sure everything is in place. There's a lot of collaboration that has to happen across the district, and we are doing that currently to ensure that this is not an issue. You're welcome.
So, you know, I kind of laid out some of the challenges that are in front of y'all, on top of a lot of the other financial challenges and budgeting issues that, I say issues of just the state of independent school district finance in the state of Texas. You know, not only are y'all are immune to it, just like all the other districts that are about to face some of the challenges. So, you know, with these findings, from my standpoint, I want to challenge everyone in the room to, you know, throw it back in my face and say, we're good now. I would love nothing more than to be, for y'all to come in and show me, here's everything that we're doing. So, that's what I want to challenge everyone in the room, is that, these problems are fixable with a little bit of, you know, not that it hadn't been there, now that they're on paper here, just challenge you all to rectify those, get them corrected. And I think once you get these corrected, I think what you'll see is that it's not gonna magically add dollars to the balance sheet or the cash accounts or grow that fund balance. But what you'll see is that the information that you have is clear, so that when decision making needs to be done, it can be made with, without the picture being murky.
Great. All right, Chris, thank you so much for the presentation and for all the information. I know we're headed in the right direction, and we have some great knowledge and skills that Mr. Rankin brings to the table, and I know Mr. Townsend and Mr. Howard, they're all working together to ensure that we're moving in the right direction and not just kind of stagnant and swirling. So thank you for your work. I appreciate it. Does anyone have any questions?
The areas that these findings were found in, are we taking action steps to go within the other areas so that we're
Yes, sir.
not dropping the ball on?
Yes,
those?
sir. And in fact, on all of the items, when I first came in, Wade and I had a very long sit down to where we were able to talk about all of the kind of things that are out there that we need to pay attention to. And we started enacting some of those changes immediately, but we are monitoring a lot of the things through there. We've already cleared all the general ledger books, the finding number 1, essentially for 24-25, we're working to make sure everything is clear for 25-26. So it's a process, it takes a lot of time to make sure everything is good, but since I first got in, we started working on all of that to make sure everything is clear and concise and fixed.
I definitely do not want to be in situations where we have to give money back or we're penalized and have to pay a fine because we didn't spend the right amount of money.
Yeah, I definitely understand that, and my goal is to not have any findings next year whatsoever off of this, to make sure that we're compliant with everything and we're making sure that we're tracking everything and monitoring everything correctly. That's our goal. And with the previous district that I was at, I never had a finding before, so this is interesting. But I'm gonna do the same for you.
Sounds good.
We appreciate it.
No problem.
All right, if there are no other questions, I appreciate your presentation. We do need to approve the financial audit. So if there's a motion to be made to approve the financial audit, I will take that. Okay, there's a motion on the table to approve the audit as presented in board book. Is there a second to the motion? All right, we have a first and a second. Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. All right, item E, discuss and consider approval of the audit engagement letter with KM&L or grant permission to seek proposals for audit services.
So currently, this is our chance to hire an auditor for the coming year. KM&L is currently our auditor. They have the letter in there, and I would suggest if you wouldn't mind if we continue with them the following year, I would appreciate that.
All right, are there any questions? Is there a motion to be made?
I make a
to approve the audit engagement letter with K&L.
All right, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any further questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, have a great evening. Be careful going home. Thank you. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that anyone would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to be made? All right, there's a motion on the table to approve the consent agenda as presented in board book. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. All right, at this time, we will move into executive session. Under personnel matters, if necessary, may be taken into closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074 to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, resignation, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, including contract recommendations for campus and district level administrators and teachers. And item 2, deliberation regarding superintendent's evaluation and contract, Texas Government Code 551.074. We will convene into closed session at 7:26.
Made it easy to follow.
All right, we will reconvene into open session at 7:50. Item 1, discuss and consider approval of hiring of contractual personnel. Is there a motion to be
Make
made?
a motion to hire contractual personnel as presented.
Made it easy to
All
follow.
right, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second for the motion? Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item 2, consider and take possible action regarding superintendent's contract. Is there a motion to be made?
Make a motion to approve superintendent's evaluation and contract as discussed in closed session.
All right, is there a second to the motion? All right, we have a first and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. All right, last item of business is adjournment. Is there a motion to be made? All right, we have a motion on the table to adjourn. Is there a second? Any further comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes at 7:51.
Hey, Jill,
Yes, sir.
So adjourned.
I got to play at home tomorrow.
They do.
I'm going to.
It's a big game.